Welcome to Echo Forge, dark fantasy and sci-fi stories from the edges of forgotten worlds. If you enjoy this kind of storytelling, hit like, subscribe, and tap the bell so you don't miss the next vision. Now, let's step through the gate.
Harmony Station. The distress signal reached them in the middle of a quiet shift. If anything on a warship could be called quiet. Lieutenant Mara Ibarra was halfway through a lukewarm protein bar when the bridge lights dimmed, screens shifting to amber. The low murmur of the Rook's crew cut off as the alert tone rolled through the ship, 3 descending chimes, then the crackle of a live priority feed. Unidentified colonial distress beacon detected, the ship's AI announced, voice flat and calm. Origin, Harmony Station, designation, HS-37, Outer Rim, signal classed as Type 7, total systems failure, hostile presence suspected. Colonial Authority Protocol mandates military response. Mara set the bar down and pushed herself out of the crash couch. The Rook's bridge was compact, all sharp angles and dull metal, light from the displays painting everyone in pale blue. Captain Stroud straightened in the command chair, jaw tightening just enough for Mara to notice. On the main screen, a wireframe model of a small colony rotated slowly, circled by a blinking red icon. "Harmony," Stroud muttered. "Thought that place was still on the construction list." "It is," said Ree from the sensor pit. The specialist's fingers slid across the console. "Registered as 3 years into development. Population, 87 permanent residents, plus 6 rotational tech staff. No military presence listed." "Timestamp?" Mara asked. "On the signal?" Ree frowned. That's odd. Initial timestamp is 41 days ago, but the burst we just caught is 12 minutes old. Same packet, same content. Just rebroadcast." Mara stepped closer to Ree's station. Text rolled across the screen, compressed logs, coordinates, a brief frantic voice clip tagged to the packet. "Play the voice," Stroud ordered. A hiss of static filled the bridge, then a voice, distorted and ragged. "Harmony Station, this is Dr. Elaine Voris. Systems failing. Life support compromised. Unknown pathogen. We are—" A wet, tearing noise, a muffled shout in the background. "If anyone picks this up, quarantine. Do not—" The clip cut off with a sound like someone had slammed a fist into the microphone. Silence followed, hanging over the bridge. Mara realized she'd been holding her breath. Ree swallowed. "That's attached to both transmissions. Same clip. No variation." "So," Stroud said, "we have a month-old distress call, rebroadcast just now from a colony that doesn't answer normal hails." "Can we confirm Harmony is still there?" Mara asked. "No debris field, no obvious absence?" Ree snorted softly. "Colony still in one piece. Power grid's up, at least partially. Atmosphere domes show thermal signatures. Nothing that screams mass fire or active bombardment. But no transponders, no traffic. It's quiet. Quiet." Mara didn't like that word. Not out here. Stroud looked over at her. "Marine detachment is yours, Lieutenant. Standard hazard assessment and evac if possible. Get in, get eyes, get my answers. If this is some frontier outfit panicking over fungal flu, we're going to be very annoyed." "And if it's not?" Mara asked. Stroud's eyes shifted back to the red pulsing icon. "Then you follow quarantine protocols and you don't bring anything back on my ship that breathes without permission." Mara nodded and turned for the lift. Her heart rate had ticked up, a steady drum in her ears. Type 7 signals were rare. You only sent that kind of beacon when you'd run out of other words. On her way down to the armory, she glanced once at the looping waveform of the distress clip, frozen on one of the auxiliary screens. For a moment, the static looked like it had a pattern, a faint regular repetition underneath the noise. She blinked, and it was just chaotic, meaningless snow. They named the dropship Crow 1 before it left the hangar, because Marines named everything and nothing was sacred. In the cramped bay, the air tasted of propellant, disinfectant, and metal. Mara walked the rows of harnessed soldiers, checking seals, checking eyes. 12 in total, 2 four-person squads and a support element, enough to run a full sweep of a small colony. Not enough if things were truly bad. "Suit integrity check," she called. "Sound off if anything's red." Armor whispered and clicked as helmets sealed. HUDs flickered to life, cool green overlays across the world. Mara's own suit chimed as it finished a self-diagnostic, a comforting string of green indicators along the lower edge of her vision. "Bravo?" she asked. "Good to go," replied Corporal Havel, helmet visor reflecting her own face back at her. His tone was steady, too casual, as always. No leaks, no curses, no existential dread. Yet. "Give it time," muttered O'Connor from behind him. "Cut the chatter," Mara said, but there was no heat in it. Banter kept people thinking. Thinking kept them alive. Doc Salim sat nearest the medkit locker, double-checking the seals on his own wrists. "Filters are triple stacked," he reported. "We've got full chem-bio lockout. If this unknown pathogen is airborne, it's not getting through unless it can eat carbon nanotube." "Comforting," Rhee said over the squad channel. She sat strapped into the corner seat, portable sensor rig hooked into the dropship shell. "Assuming our pathogen cares about the rules." "Everything cares about the rules," Salim replied. "Biology is lazy. It uses what works." Mara locked him with a look. "Doc, please don't start a philosophical argument with the hypothetical pathogen." He lifted his gloved hands in apology. The dropship thrummed as it disengaged from the Rook's clamps. The deck shuddered under Mara's boots. Through the small viewport near the cockpit bulkhead, she watched the black dotted with distant stars tilt away as they angled toward the pale sliver of the planet below. Harmony's world was small and cold-looking, veiled by thin clouds. The colony sat in the Terminator band, permanent soft twilight, the sort of compromise that made agricultural systems happy and humans melancholic. "Atmosphere readings are within tolerances," Rhee said. "Pressure a bit low, but nothing your suits can't handle. Gravity's 92% standard." She hesitated. "There's some weird interference near the colony grid, though. EM bands are messy. I'm getting echoes." "Echoes?" Mara asked, like the signal's bouncing off more than it should. Layers. Could just be the terrain. This place has a lot of iron in the crust, or... Rhee trailed off. "Or," O'Connor prodded, "or someone's broadcasting something else on top of what we're seeing." Mara frowned. "Anything like the distress signal?" "I'll tell you when we're planetside," Rhee said. "Hard to separate it from the general junk right now." A tone chimed in the dropship. The pilot's voice crackled over their helmets. "We're on approach. 30 seconds to Atmo. Buckle in." The turbulence hit them in a steady roar as they knifed through the thin upper layers. Mara felt it more as vibrations through her harness than proper motion. She'd done this too many times to flinch. She closed her eyes for a moment, running through the mental checklist. Insertion, perimeter, initial sweep. She tried not to think about the fact that the last time she'd answered a Type 7, they'd gotten there in time to find 13 people half alive and begging not to be taken off-world. Sometimes the worst thing you could do was rescue someone. The dropship steadied, engines throttling down. Gravity pressed a little harder on her shoulders. "Visual on Harmony," the pilot said. "We're dropping right onto the primary pad. I'm not seeing any moving heat signatures anywhere." Ghost colony, Mara thought. Touchdown in 5. The crow's skids kissed metal with a shudder. Hydraulic locks clamped. The pilot called, "Green light! You're down!" The ramp hissed as it dropped, pale twilight spilling in. Mara stood, rifle already in hand. "Alpha, with me. Bravo, watch our 6. Rhee, keep that sensor pack live and close. Let's go find out who's still screaming." They stepped out into the abandoned world. Harmony Station had been built on flat basalt, its structures gnarled around the anchor of a central tower. Everything was functional, modular, a spine of prefab habitat blocks, hydroponic domes like opaque bubbles, power conduits snaking along the ground in armored bundles. The sky above was a bruised gray, a dim sun smearing light through thin cloud. The first thing Mara noticed was the silence. Not the relative quiet of a colony at low activity, but an absence. No whine of drones, no animal calls, no distant rumble of machinery. Even the wind seemed muffled, sliding over the structures like it was wary of brushing against them. Their boots rang hollow on the landing pad. The crow's engines wound down behind them, leaving the dull hum of its idling systems and the faint crackle of their suit radios. "Where is everyone?" muttered Havel. "Inside," Salim said, "or in the ground." Mara scanned the perimeter. The landing pad connected to the main colony by a wide transit corridor, a pressurized tunnel with an airlock at each end, currently open on the colony side. Lights flickered weakly along its ceiling. "Thermal?" she asked. "Nothing moving outside," Ree replied, eyes flicking across her wrist display. "Structures are warm, but that's just residual heat. Power's still flowing somewhere in there, but no discrete heat signatures bigger than a rat." "Assuming rats made it to Harmony," Havel said. "They always do," O'Connor muttered. Mara walked to the edge of the pad where a low railing dropped off to raw rock. The colony perimeter fence lay 15 meters away, a loop of smart wire and sensor posts. Several segments sagged, collapsed outward, as if something had pushed through from inside. Beyond the fence, the landscape ran flat for kilometers. Scrub, bare stone, the occasional hunched boulder. No cover, no movement. "Whatever happened," she said, "it didn't come from outside." Or if it did, Salim added, it decided to stay. The colony airlock yawned open like a pulled tooth. Its inner door stood frozen mid-cycle, a smear of black scarring one edge. "Mara," Ree said quietly, "you should see this." Mara crossed over. Ree pointed to a panel just inside the airlock frame. The screen was cracked, but still dimly lit, lines of text drifting slowly upward as if unsure where to go. "Logs," Ree said. "Final entry on here is 41 days ago. Airlock went into lockdown. Then, 15 minutes ago, something overrode it and set it to open, from inside the colony." "Manual override?" Mara asked. Ree shook her head. "Command-level system access. Could be the central AI, could be an admin console. Either way, the order came from a place that hasn't logged any other activity since things went to hell." "Someone woke the door back up," Salim said. "Someone who's been very quiet until now." Mara made herself look down the corridor into Harmony's dim interior. "Alpha will take point," she said. "Bravo staggered behind us 5 meters. Nobody strays, nobody lingers. Ree, you walk center with that rig. If the environment breathes funny, I want to know." She tapped the side of her helmet. "All squads, full quarantine rules apply. No direct contact with surfaces unless necessary. No removing helmets. If you get so much as a pinprick in your suit, you scream." Havel grunted. "Real confidence-building pep talk there, LT." "I live to serve," Mara said. They entered the colony in 2 lines, flashlights cutting beams through the half-lit corridor. Dust floated in the air, shining like faint motes of ash. The moment she crossed the threshold, Mara felt something, a subtle shift in the air like the drop just before a storm. Her HUD flickered, then stabilized. She told herself it was just interference. Harmony had been built in layers. They moved first through the reception block, wide corridors, walls lined with posters and outdated public notices. A display showing colony population still read 93. Someone had drawn a smiley face in dust on its corner. No footsteps spoiled the thin layer of grime. "Looks like they left in a hurry," O'Connor said. "Doesn't look like they left at all," Mara thought. There were no packed bags, no dragged crates, just absence. The first streak of dried blood appeared near the inner transit hub, a smear along the wall, 4 fingers width, leading into a side corridor. "Follow it?" asked Havel. Mara hesitated. The mission plan said main admin first, secure the command center, access logs, then out into the ancillary modules. But the sight of that dried stain, the simple human trace of panic, tugged at her. "We stick to the plan," she said. "Mark it." Havel sprayed a small fluorescent marker near the smear. It glowed under their suit lights, a sharp blue arrow. They moved on. The admin block doors were closed but not sealed. When Mara keyed them, they slid open with a reluctant hiss. Stale air pushed against them, suit filters purring to compensate. Inside, Harmony's central office lay in disarray. Chairs overturned, paper slates scattered, one wall screen spiderwebbed with cracks. A bulletin board still held a schedule of shifts and community events. Movie night, hydroponic harvest festival, a notice about a child's missing toy. "I hate these," Salim murmured. "The little normal things." "Focus," Mara said. They swept the room. No bodies, no signs of a standoff beyond scattered furniture. The central admin console flickered fitfully, casting pale light. Ree slid into the chair, sweeping manuals off with the back of her hand. She jacked her wrist terminal into the console. "Core's still online," she said. "Harmony's AI is responsive, sort of. Lots of corrupted sectors, logs are patchy." "Ask what happened," Mara said. Ree gave her a look, but did it anyway. "Colony Core, this is Specialist Yara Ree, Military Support Vessel Rook. Please state the cause of the distress signal and current status of colonists." The reply came not as a voice, but as a stream of text across the screen. "Distress signal, initiated by Dr. Elaine Voris, Level 3 Authority. Status, critical failure in multiple systems, unknown, biohazard detected, colonists." The cursor blinked, text glitched, letters overlaying each other, nonsense characters dancing. "Compromised, it's trying to say," Ree muttered. The garble resolved into a single word. "Irretrievable." Mara exhaled slowly. "Ask when the distress protocol was triggered." Ree did. The response came clean this time. "Distress protocol initiated, day 4, 112, cycle 3, 0421, local, current local date, day 4, 153, cycle 3, distress signal, rebroadcast, day 4, 153, cycle 3, 0359, local." "So 41 days ago," Salim said, "and someone woke the beacon back up less than an hour before we arrived." "Who?" Mara asked. Ree's fingers moved. "Core, what process or user reactivated the distress broadcast?" This time, nothing came back. The entire console flickered, dimmed, brightened. For a moment the screen showed only a chaotic storm of symbols, fractals of letters, nested and repeating. Then it went black. Mara frowned. "Did we lose power?" "No," Ree said. "Core's still responding to pings. It just stopped talking." Her wrist display chimed softly. She looked down. "Huh. That's new." "What?" "I'm seeing a secondary broadcast piggybacking on the distress band. Very low intensity, narrow spectrum, almost at the noise floor. It's local, inside the colony mesh." "Meaning?" "Meaning the distress signal isn't the only thing that got flipped back on." "Direction?" Ree tapped. "Looks like it's strongest near the lower hab tiers. Residential clusters, hydroponics, maintenance." "Good," Mara said. "We need to search there anyway." She turned to the rest of the Marines. "We split. Alpha with me, we'll take the first hab ring. Bravo with Havel, take hydroponics and maintenance. Ree, you're with me. Salim goes with Bravo. Report in every 5 minutes, no heroics." Havel nodded. "Copy that." Mara watched Bravo squad file out through the opposite corridor, their flashlights shrinking and vanishing. The admin office seemed to grow quieter when they were gone. Habitat Ring 1 felt wrong in ways Mara couldn't quite name. On paper, it was simple. A looping corridor with doorways to private units, communal spaces interspersed like vertebrae. Harmony had been designed for comfort as far as frontier living went. Warm wall colors, soft lighting, wide windows along the outer curve, now displaying only the gray sky and flat rock. The wrongness was in the way the personal spaces looked like people had just stepped away. A mug sat on a table, its contents evaporated to a faint dark ring. A sweater lay on a chair back. Toys scattered across a common room floor, a plastic dinosaur, a hand-drawn starship, no dust on them. "Filters say air in here is stale and slightly elevated on CO2, Ree reported. No unusual spores, no particulates outside the usual. Pathogen-wise, this place is boring. Tell that to the people who ran, O'Connor muttered. Mara checked each doorway, rifle leading. Fully sealed suits meant she could smell nothing of the place. Sometimes that was worse, the absence of scent, the sense of being removed from the true texture of a disaster. Visual anomaly, Kaito said quietly over squad chat. Left side, past door 6. Mara swung a rifle toward the indicated patch. At first, she saw only a smear on the floor, darker than the rest. Then her light caught it directly and it gleamed, wet, oily. Sample? Ree murmured. Negative, Mara said automatically, but she crouched, keeping a good meter's distance. The stain was long dried. Its sheen was deceptive, just the way its surface reflected light. It had seeped into the composite flooring along a jagged trail, like something had been dragged. Within it, pale fragments remained, flecks that might have once been skin. More disturbing were the tiny threads that radiated outward, hair-thin lines almost invisible until she amplified her lens. They bore a strange regularity, like cracks forming a pattern rather than spreading randomly. Just looking at them made her eyes ache. O'Connor, she said, mark this and tag the images to Salim. Done, he said. Doc's getting it now. His voice was steady, but his breathing had gone a notch faster. They moved on, deeper into the ring. The first body turned up in a communal shower room. O'Connor found it, his flashlight catching on the unnatural angle of a limb. Contact, he said. We've got someone. Mara stepped in beside him. The figure lay naked on the tiles, half inside one of the stall cubicles, half out. At first glance, the corpse looked almost normal. Average build, adult female. Skin dried and grayed but intact. No obvious wounds. Then Mara's light slid across the torso and she saw the openings, small puckered orifices along the rib cage and thighs, as if something had burrowed from within and left neatly ringed holes behind. Around each, the skin folded into symmetrical ridges. In some of them, a faint dark residue clung like soot. Mara's stomach rolled, but she kept her voice level. Ree, sample this, carefully, no direct contact. Use the extended kit. Ree set her rig down, hands moving with mechanical precision. She extended a sampling wand with its own micro-containment field and gently scraped the residue into a vial, which sealed with a soft click. Salim, she said over the shared channel, sending you a visual and chem scan. Receiving, Salim replied after a beat. His voice had that slightly distracted tone he got when buried in data. Jesus, that's interesting. Define interesting, Doc, Mara said. Not like anything I've seen. It's okay. Imagine a protein lattice that got bored of being a protein and decided it wanted to be an electronic circuit. The residue has conduction properties. It's structuring itself in fractal layers. It's alive? O'Connor asked. Not in any way I can confirm at this resolution, but I wouldn't stick my fingers in it. Wasn't planning to, O'Connor muttered. Doc, Mara said, could this be our unknown biohazard? Very likely. The openings on the body line up with major vascular and neuro pathways. Something grew in there, then left, or tried to. I'd love to get the whole... His voice cut off abruptly. Bravo? Mara asked. Salim, report. No answer. She felt her throat tighten. Havel, this is Alpha. Status. Static hissed for a second, then Havel's voice broke through. We're here. Hydroponics entry. Sorry, LT, the local mesh just glitched. We lost your last 5 seconds. You dropped off our feeds too, Mara said. Check your squad. Everyone's up, Havel replied. Salim's swearing quietly in the back. We were just about to... Oh, you've got to see this. Send video, Mara said. Her HUD chimed as a feed popped up in the corner of her vision. Havel's helmet cam. Hydroponics stretched out in a haze of green, rows of nutrient trays clambering into the distance under UV lamps. The edges of the room were shrouded in shadow. Water drifted from a cracked pipe in a slow drip. Plants hung limp and nearly colorless, and along the far wall, something moved. At first, Mara thought it was just a tangle of vines. Then it shifted, and she realized she was looking at a human form, half fused with the growth around it, limbs extended at wrong angles, wrapped in translucent roots that pulsed faintly. The head tilted toward Havel's squad, jaw distended, skin stretched thin over bone. Eyes stared blankly, irises clouded and filmed with a faint dark sheen. The person opened their mouth wider. The sound that came out was not a scream, not exactly. It was a thin, high, almost electronic whine, laced with a pattern of clicks. The video warped for a second, pixels twisting, edges bending. Mara's HUD flared with an error icon, then stabilized. "Bravo! Do not approach!" she snapped. "Maintain distance! Salim, what's your read?" That was human," Salim said, sounding strained. "Subject appears heavily colonized by some kind of network. Vascular, muscular, neural, all cross-wired with that residue." "It's part of the hydroponic system now," Havel added. "Roots going into the trays, like it wanted more surface area." The fused colonist, or whatever they were now, still stared. Their eyes flicked, focusing on something to the left of the squad, someone off camera. The whine changed pitch, modulating. Mara's HUD glitched again, just for a heartbeat. Her ears rang, not from sound that passed through air, but from something that seemed to tickle the inside of her skull. "Bravo, fall back," Mara said. "Do not engage unless it moves. Our mission is recon, not extermination." "We're backing out now," Havel replied. "Happy to let sleeping creepy lie." The feed cut out, returning to Mara's external view. Ree was watching her carefully. "The audio in that clip," she said. "You felt that, right?" "Felt what?" O'Connor asked. "I got noise and a headache." "Exactly," Ree said. "It shouldn't be doing that through sealed helmets. I'm going to analyze." "Later," Mara said, more sharply than she intended. "We take what we've got and move. If these things can mess with our systems, I don't want to stand still." She forced herself to look once more at the body on the shower floor. Whatever had begun there had ended somewhere else. "Colonists compromised and altered," she said quietly, logging it on her HUD. "Unknown signal piggybacking our comms. Distress beacon reactivated by, what, the pathogen? The colony AI under duress? Or someone else entirely," Ree said. "We still don't know if anyone sent that beacon to lure us." Mara nodded once. "Then we find out." They found the first missing suit just past the junction to Habring 2. Kaito said. "LT, you're going to want to see this?" Mara jogged up, turning the corner. The corridor was narrow here, more utility than residential. Wiring conduits and maintenance hatches lined the walls. Halfway down, something lay crumpled. At first it looked like an empty gear bag. Then she saw the articulated joints, the helmet. "ID tag reads Private Amir Chen," Kaito said, voice gone soft. "Bravo, squad." Mara's blood ran cold. "Bravo status now," she snapped. "Everyone is—" Havel started, then cut off. "Wait, Chen. Where the hell is Chen?" Salim swore in the background, a sharp bark. "He was right behind me in the maintenance stairwell, 5 seconds ago." "Check your vitals feed," Mara said. Her HUD already showed Chen's biometric channel as scrambled static, then flatlined. "Nothing," Havel said. "No external cam. We just lost him." Mara knelt by the suit. It lay twisted, as if it had simply been dropped. The seals along the arms and legs were intact, but the main torso seam gaped open, not cut, not torn, but unzipped, the material peeled outward in a neat spiral. Inside, there was no body, no blood either, just that faint dark residue clinging in thin bands along the interior. The helmet's visor was opaque from the inside. Mara tapped it. The opacity cleared. Glyphs filled the interior surface, etched into the material from within. They were not any written language she recognized, just looping, recursive shapes that made her eyes water if she stared too long. "What the hell?" O'Connor whispered. "He's gone," Salim said in Mara's ear. No trace on any thermal or motion we're picking up within 50 meters, no residual biosigns. How far are you from Alpha's location? Mara asked Havel. 2 levels down, Havel replied, near the maintenance conduits that run under the habs. There's more noise down here, LT. I don't like it. Feels like the whole deck is humming. Fall back toward admin, Mara said. Regroup at Central Hub. No one moves alone. No one turns off their external cams. If you lose sight of someone, you call it the same second. Copy that, Havel said. Mara stared at the empty suit for one more moment. The spiral of the unsealed seam made her think, nonsensically, of a chrysalis opening. LT, Rhys said quietly. That secondary signal just spiked. Where from? Everywhere. Her HUD lit with a brief disorienting flare of static. For a heartbeat, the entire colony mesh seemed to surge, pinging her suit, her rifle, her visor. Error messages cascaded, then died. Talk to me, Rhys, Mara said. What was that? A broadcast, Rhys said. Short, coherent. It hit every antenna in the mesh and then went quiet. I'm trying to... Her voice cut. For a moment, Mara heard something else on the line. A faint clicking, like teeth on glass, arranged in a pattern that almost resolved into speech before dissolving into static. Rhys, Mara said. Respond. I'm here, Rhys replied after a second too long. Sorry, got a feedback spike. I'm fine. You sure? Yes. A pause. We need to get to the central AI core, Lieutenant. If something is hijacking the mesh, that's where it's going to roost. Mara considered. Admin was right above the core. Bravo was already headed back that way. If they could hard-cut the colony's uplink in power, they could kill whatever was broadcasting, distress signal included. That at least would prevent anyone else from following them into this mess. All right, she said. Alpha back to admin. Then we go down. As they retraced their steps, Mara kept glancing over her shoulder, half expecting to see Chen's suit standing up and walking after them. It remained where it lay, a discarded shell. She thought of the word harmony and how badly it fit this place now. The AI core was 3 levels down from admin, accessible via a security stairwell that required override codes. The door was already open when they got there. That's not comforting, Havel muttered as both squads converged at the top of the stairs. His armor was scuffed, and there was a smear of something dark on his left thigh plate. Status? Mara asked. Hydroponics is a nightmare, he said. We saw more of them. Fused to walls, floors, gear. Some of them moved. Some were just growing. We followed a maintenance shaft up to the main conduit, and that's when we lost Chen. He was there 1 second, light on my HUD, then gone. No sound, no sign of a struggle. Just a weird pressure in my ears and then... absence. Salim looked exhausted. I'm logging him as KIA until we know otherwise. But whatever took him didn't leave much for me to analyze. Did you see any unaltered colonists? Mara asked. Any sign of survivors? Havel shook his head. Not a one. If anyone made it out of here human, they did it long before we showed up. Mara stared down the stairwell. The lights below flickered. A faint hum rolled up the shaft, vibration riding the air. All right, she said. We make this quick. We get to the core. You cut power to the external arrays. Distress signal dies. Secondary signal dies with it. If we can't shut the AI down clean, we blow the access conduits and bury this thing. Then we evac. And the colony? Salim asked. Mara met his gaze. We came here to help people, Doc. If there are none left to help. But she couldn't say the rest. Couldn't say that sometimes mercy meant sterilization from orbit. Move out, she said instead. The stairwell stank of ozone and burnt plastic, even through their filters. The deeper they descended, the more the vibration in the walls made itself known. A low, oscillating thrum that seemed to sync with Mara's heartbeat, then slip out of phase and leave her subtly off balance. At the bottom, the door to the core's outer chamber had buckled outward. Not exploded, not cut. Bulged as if pressure had swelled behind it until the material gave. The opening was just wide enough for a person in armor to squeeze through. "On me," Mara said. Inside, the outer chamber was surprisingly untouched. Banks of dormant servers, diagnostic stations sleeping in screensaver mode. A second door, marked with hazard glyphs, sat at the far end. It, too, gaped open. Light pulsed in the room beyond, rhythmic and cold. "Ree," Mara said. "You're up." Ree glanced at her, then nodded and moved forward, rifle slung, sensor rig humming softly on her back. Mara followed close, the rest in a tight wedge. The core chamber was circular, 3 stories tall, lined with vertical racks of processing units. At its center, a cylindrical column of hardware rose from floor to ceiling, the AI's main stack, wrapped in insulated conduits. The light came from the column. It strobed in slow waves, a faint blue-white radiance that spilled through tiny seams. Each pulse triggered a corresponding glitch in Mara's HUD, a momentary hitch in the suit's readouts. "That's not standard," Havel said softly. "No," Ree agreed. She moved to the central console, which leaned askew, one side sprouting a filigree of crystalline growths, dark, glossy ridges that had burst from the surface like invasive roots. They spiraled up toward the column. "Careful," Salim said reflexively. Ree stopped just short of touching the growth. "The AI processes are wrong," she said, eyes tracking invisible streams on her display. "There's a secondary pattern overlaid on all core functions. It's not just corruption, it's structured, organized." "Like a parasite," Salim said. "Exactly," Ree said. "It's using the AI's architecture as nerve tissue." Mara glanced up at the column. The pulsing light seemed to quicken, responding to their presence. "Can you shut it down?" she asked. Ree hesitated. "If I try to hit a hard reset, it might just route around the damage. Whatever this is, it's adaptive. If I pull the main power bus, we risk a surge that could fry the core in half the colony grid. Or," her voice dropped, "or it jumps to the next available system with enough capacity to host it." Mara's eyes flicked to their helmets, their suits, the dropship waiting on the pad. "Oh, hell no," O'Connor said. "Okay," Ree went on, talking fast now, that edge of excited terror in her voice. "Better approach, isolate. I can sever the core's external comms and physical uplink, lock it as much as possible within this room. We blow the main conduits afterward to make sure nothing piggybacks. Then we kill the power clean from admin. That should starve it." "How long?" Mara asked. "Give me," Ree swallowed. 3 minutes, I think." "You have 2, Mara said. "Everyone else, defensive positions. If this thing doesn't want to be cut off, it's going to try to stop us." "From where?" Havel asked. The answer came from the walls. At first, Mara thought the movement was just a trick of the strobing light. Then, panels began to bulge, the seams between server stacks widening as something pressed from within. Fine fractures appeared in the metal, spiderwebbing outward. Dust sifted down. Then the panels split. From behind them, the colonists emerged. They were wrong. That was Mara's first coherent thought. They moved with an insectile precision, limbs flexing too smoothly, like joints had been rebored and lubricated. Their skin was no longer one continuous surface, but a map of overlapping plates, grown from that dark residue. Where eyes had been, some had smooth blank surfaces with faint shifting patterns beneath. Others had cavernous sockets, filled with delicate branching tendrils that quivered in the air. Some crawled along walls and ceiling, fingers and toes elongated into hooked points. Others walked upright, but their motions carried the disconcerting jerk of something mimicking human gait from memory rather than instinct. They were silent as they emerged, dozens of them, maybe more, pouring from the recesses around the core. No groans, no screams, just the faint clicking of their altered cartilage against metal. "Contact!" Havel shouted. "Multiple hostiles closing!" "Hold fire until they commit," Mara snapped. "We don't know what stray shots will do to this place." The colonists, no, the things that had been colonists, spread out, forming a loose ring around the Marines. They didn't rush. They just advanced, slowly, heads tilting, the tendrils in their eye sockets tasting the air. One of them turned its altered face toward Mara. Its mouth opened, the lower jaw unhinging far too wide. The sound it made remained low, almost below hearing range, a hum that resonated in her chest rather than her ears. Her HUD glitched again. The sound resolved into an overlay of icons across her vision for an instant, shapes that tried to align with her suit's interface, then failed. "They're broadcasting," Reese said through clenched teeth. "Suit systems are catching it, some kind of handshake request. It's trying to talk to our hardware." "Decline the call," Hovell said. "It doesn't work like that," Ree muttered, fingers flying. One of the creatures on the ceiling flexed and lunged, dropping straight toward Ree. "Contact!" O'Connor yelled. Mara fired. Her rifle barked in the enclosed space, recoil driving into her shoulder. The slug tore through the falling creature's chest, throwing it sideways into a server bank. It hit with a sick crack and slid down, leaving a smear of dark fluid. The center of its torso had simply collapsed, the lattice of altered tissue crumpling like burnt paper. The others reacted. They moved all at once, an explosion of motion from every direction. "Engage!" Mara shouted. The chamber filled with gunfire and flickering light. Bullets tore into twisted limbs, shattered plates of grown bone, punched through torsos. The creatures didn't scream, but a chorus of that low, toothacheing hum rose, phasing in and out, modulating. Mara swung her rifle, tracking a crawling shape along the wall. It launched itself at Hovell. She fired, catching it mid-air. It hit him anyway, momentum carrying its body into his chest. Hooked fingers scraped across his armor, skittering for purchase. Hovell slammed his forearm up, driving the creature back. Kaido's rifle barked beside him, 3 shots tearing the thing's head apart. Black fluid splashed across Hovell's visor. His HUD flared with a contamination warning. "Compound on my visor," he snapped. "Seal integrity?" Mara asked. "Solid," he replied. "It's not getting in, but I can't see a damn—" The fluid on his visor shifted. Mara saw it, even across the room, the way the droplets crawled, slowly, against gravity, coalescing into fine lines. They began to trace shapes on the glass, the same recursive, fractal glyphs she'd seen etched inside Chen's helmet. "It's interfacing with his optics," Reese said, voice high. "It's trying to write itself into his visual feed. If it gets a pattern into his optic nerve, it might not need a breach." "Shut his visual input off!" Mara snapped. "Doing it," Reese said. Hovell cursed as his visor went black. "Thanks for that." "You're welcome," Reese said tersely. "Your eyes can thank me later." More creatures swarmed from the walls, climbing over racks, leaping from angles that made targeting them a nightmare. Their movements were coordinated, not mindless rushes, but flanking arcs, covering each other's advances. They targeted weak points, the joints of armor, the spaces between them, the exposed weapons. One hit Salim from behind, dropping from the ceiling. Its fingers latched onto the medkit on his back, crushing metal. Salim screamed, more from surprise than pain. The suit took the impact. O'Connor turned, firing a burst that took off the creature's arm. It didn't recoil. It twisted, lunging for Salim's helmet. Mara moved without thinking. 3 steps, pivot, shot. Her bullet took the creature point blank in what passed for its head. The impact knocked it sideways, and Salim toppled with it. Kaido grabbed the medic's harness, yanking him back. "Ree!" Mara shouted over the roar. "Status!" "Working!" Ree shouted back. "I've isolated the core's primary uplink, cutting its external antennas now." As she spoke, 3 of the creatures changed direction mid-charge, converging on her. They moved faster than the others, joints snapping into a blur. One brushed against the central column as it passed, leaving a smear of dark residue on the hardware. "Henri!" Mara called. She and Hovell both swung their rifles. Hovell, blinded, fired on audio, his shots going wide but forcing one creature to dodge. Mara tracked the nearest, fired twice, tore one leg off. It stumbled but continued forward, crawling on 3 limbs. Reed ducked under its reach, rolling, sensor rig clattering. Kaido planted a boot in the thing's side, kicking it away. O'Connor's rifle chattered, stitching bullets across its torso until it stopped moving. The other 2 made it to the column. They didn't attack physically. They simply pressed their hands. No, their altered nervous structures against the hardware. Dark residue flowed from their fingers into the seams, a slow seep. The pulsing light in the core brightened. The hum in the room rose to a teeth-grinding pitch. "LT!" Ree yelled, alarmed. "They're reinforcing the link. They're trying to push whatever this is into a higher throughput state. If they succeed, it might jump." "Then don't let it!" Mara snarled, firing at the creatures by the column. Her shots punched through their bodies, but they held their positions, twitching. It took 3 more rounds to knock them down. The light dimmed slightly. The hum wavered. Ree stabbed a command through the console. "External antenna array is offline. Distress signal is dead. Secondary broadcast just dropped to local." "Good," Mara said. "Now kill its legs. We blow the conduits," and something grabbed her ankle. She looked down. One of the creatures she'd shot earlier lay crumpled, half its torso gone. Its remaining arm had snapped out, fingers wrapped around her boot. The grip was strong, much stronger than dying tissue had any right to be. She tried to yank free. The creature's tendrils surged along her armor, seeking seams. Before it could find any, Havel's boot came down on its wrist with a crack. The grip loosened. Mara pulled away, fired a round into its spine for good measure. "Thanks," she panted. "Returning the favor," Havel said. "Ree," Mara asked, "tell me something good." "I've locked the core's internal processes into a tight loop," Ree said, sweat beading on her lip. "It's like forcing it to talk to itself. If this parasite is writing its architecture, it's about to get very confused. We should blow the conduits now, before it figures out a way around." "Charges?" Mara asked. Kaido, patting the satchel on his hip. "Got 4 shaped, enough to slag every major power line feeding this room." "Set them," Mara said. "Everyone else, keep these things off him." The fight condensed into a brutal close-range defense. The creatures seemed to sense what Kaido was doing. They surged harder against the periphery, focusing on his position. The Marines formed a tight ring, rifles spitting, boots stomping. Armor alarms chirped as claws scraped and fluid splashed. One of the creatures took 3 rounds and kept coming, half its face blown away, tendrils whipping. It collided with O'Connor, both of them slamming into a server rack. The structure tipped, crashing down in a cascade of metal. O'Connor disappeared under it. "O'Connor!" Salim yelled. Mara pivoted, firing at anything that moved near the wreckage. "O'Connor, sound off!" A groan came through the channel. "Still here, Lieutenant. Suit integrity's mostly holding. Something's pinned my leg." "Leave him," O'Connor added quickly. "You pull this off me, you're going to dislodge a lot of sharp metal into places we want it not to go. Just finish the job. I'll be fine until then." There was no time to argue. Kaido slapped the last charge into place, hands moving with practiced efficiency. "Charges set," he called. "Timers sync to remote det." "How long do we get?" Havel asked. 30 seconds from trigger," Kaido replied. "Ree," Mara said, "can you route the detonation along a path that doesn't blow us back to the pad?" "I can try to shape the blast along the conduits," Ree said, "but it's going to be messy regardless. We need to be out of this room before they go, or we're cooked." Mara nodded. "All right, fall back to the outer chamber. Havel, you and Kaido get O'Connor free as much as you can in 10 seconds. Then we move whether he limps or we drag him. Salim, you cover them. Ree, you're glued to my hip, on my mark." "LT," Ree interrupted quietly. "The signal. It's changing." Mara glanced at her. "Meaning?" "It's compressing," Ree said, eyes unfocused, like it knows it's being cornered. It's packing itself down, trying to fit through whatever channels are left. She looked up at Mara, and for the first time, real fear sat naked in her expression. "One of those channels is us." Mara thought of the fluid crawling on Havel's visor, the glyphs etched in Chen's helmet, the way the audio hum tried to latch onto their systems. She thought of the fact that every one of them wore equipment designed to interface seamlessly with external networks. "Can you isolate our suits?" she asked. "I can cut us off from the colony mesh entirely," Ree said. "Hard firewall, but we lose shared telemetry, shared targeting, everything. We go dumb and blind to each other's vitals, and I don't know if it's already seeded anything into our firmware." "Do it," Mara said. "We can yell like it's the 20th century." Ree grimaced, but her fingers danced. Mara's HUD flickered. The icons representing her squad mates vanished, replaced by simple directional arrows and range estimates. Shared feeds died. The low-level presence of the ship's oversight systems winked out. For the first time since they'd stepped off the Rook, Mara felt truly alone in her suit. The humming in the room rose again, then faltered as if hitting a wall. "It's not happy about that," Ree muttered. "Good," Mara said. "Havel Kaito, now." They executed the withdrawal with brutal efficiency. Havel and Kaito ripped enough debris off O'Connor's leg to get him moving, with a limp, but moving. Salim covered them, shotgun barking, every slug tearing ragged holes in anything not wearing marine armor. Creatures leapt, fell, died. One hit Kaito's back, claws scrambling for purchase, but Salim stepped in and jammed the shotgun into its ribs, pulling the trigger. The blast threw both creature and Kaito forward. They cleared the core chamber, spilling into the outer room. "Ree!" Mara snapped. Ree was already on it. She raised the detonator. "For what it's worth," she said, "this AI was beautiful before something crawled inside it. This is mercy, in a way." "Do it!" Mara said. Ree triggered the charges. For a half second, nothing happened. Then the world bucked. The explosion wasn't the sharp concussive blast Mara expected. It was a deep rolling rip that came more as a pressure wave than a sound. The floor jumped under her boots. The lights blew, plunging them into darkness as the HUDs auto-compensated, night vision kicking in. Behind them, the core chamber lit up in a wash of white on her infrared, heat flooding the room as conduits vaporized. The pulsing light of the column flared, then snapped out. The hum stopped. The silence that followed felt different from the colony's earlier quiet. This had weight to it. Finality. Mara realized she was lying on her side. At some point, the blast had knocked her down. Alarms shrieked in her helmet, shock warnings, structural stress. "Sound off," she said, forcing her voice steady. "Havel, alive," Havel grunted. "Ree, I'm here." Kaito, ears ringing but functional. Salim, "Yeah, I'd like a new spine, but this one will do." O'Connor, "Legs broken, but I've had worse. Actually, no, I really haven't." They scrambled to their feet. Dust hung thick in the air, glowing in their augmented vision. Mara risked a glance back into the core chamber. The column was shattered, sections of it slagged into molten lumps. Server racks lay toppled and bent. Of the creatures, only charred remnants remained, recognizably human in only the most basic outline. No movement. "You did it," Mara said to Ree. "Don't jinx it," Ree whispered. Getting back to the surface felt like wading through a nightmare in reverse, up through the gutted AI level, past the empty admin office, through the HAB corridors that now seemed even more corpse-like in the dark. Without mesh support, they had to call out at each junction, staying in visual range. The minor conveniences of modern battlespace tech, things Mara normally took for granted, were suddenly absent. It was strangely grounding, relying on old habits, hand signals, verbal checks. They encountered no more creatures. That was almost worse. "Where did they go?" Salim murmured at one point. "There were dozens in the core. We know there were more in hydroponics. We've only accounted for—" "Don't count," Mara said. "Counting just tells you how badly outnumbered you were." They passed the spot where Chen's empty suit still lay. It hadn't moved. The glyphs inside the helmet had faded to a faint dry residue. No crawling, no fresh patterns. The absence of motion made it look like any other relic of a disaster. Something catalogued. Finished. Ree kept glancing at her wrist, even though they'd cut themselves off from the colony systems. "The secondary signal is quiet," she said finally. "Whatever we burned down there stopped its main transmitter. I'm still getting faint noise in broader bands, but that might just be bleed from our own systems." "Is noise something that infects people?" O'Connor asked. "Only if you listen too hard," she replied, trying for a joke and half succeeding. The transit corridor to the landing pad loomed ahead, lights flickering. Beyond it lay the pale twilight and the hunched silhouette of the Crow. Mara's chest eased slightly when she saw the dropship still sitting on the pad, intact. The pilot's figure was visible through the cockpit glass, helmeted head down over the controls. "We're in sight of the Crow," she said, tapping her helmet. "Pilot, this is Lieutenant Ibarra. Power up and prep for immediate dust-off. We're bringing wounded, and we are leaving now." The pilot did not respond. "Crow, acknowledge," Mara said, sharper. "Nothing." "LT," Havel said quietly. "Look." The air around the dropship shimmered. At first, Mara thought it was just heat haze from the idling thrusters. Then she saw the pattern in it, a faint, lattice-like ripple, like the air itself was being extruded into threads and woven together. Along the dropship's hull, dark lines crawled, thin as veins, tracing out circuits across the metal. "Oh, you have got to be kidding me," Kaido whispered. "The signal," Ree said. "It's been using the colony grid as a conduit, but the pad systems, the landing telemetry, the refueling lines, they were a bridge to the Crow. It's in the ship." "Pilot may be compromised," Selim said. "Or worse." "Do we have any other ride?" O'Connor asked. Mara shook her head. "The Rook can't come down this low. Atmosphere's too dirty for her hull. The Crow is it." "So we either get on the infected bird," Havel said, "or we stay here with the ghosts." Mara stared at the dropship. The delicate webbing along its hull thickened even as she watched, the lines converging toward the cockpit and the main avionics access points. Something dark pulsed faintly behind the glass. "We still have our firewall up," Ree said. "If we board on isolated mode, no external network link, we might prevent it from spreading into our suits." "Might," Selim repeated. "We could try to scrub the avionics," Kaido said. "If we rip out every smart system and run this thing on manual." "Pilot's condition?" Mara asked. "You want me to guess if he's still human?" Selim replied. "Data's poor." "Visual check then," Havel said grimly. "If he tries to bite me with a second set of teeth, we shoot him." "Everyone listen," Mara said. "Our options are simple. We stay, we die. Maybe not today, not tomorrow, but this colony eats us. We leave in that ship, we risk taking a piece of this thing with us. But if we don't get word out, no one knows to quarantine this system. Someone else comes. Another Rook, another crew." She swallowed. "I'd rather risk carrying a spark away that we can still try to stamp out than let the fire lie here, unseen, waiting for more fuel." "That was a very cheerful metaphor, LT," O'Connor said. "I'm full of them," she replied. Ree took a breath. "I can set up a local jammer in the Crow's cabin. Anything that tries to talk in or out on EM bands above a certain threshold gets turned into white noise. It won't stop whatever's already bitten into the hardware, but it might prevent it from calling home or spreading via broadcast." "Do it," Mara said, "and keep our suits dark. No wireless, no mesh, no handshake protocols. We go analog as much as we can." She raised her rifle, feeling the weight of it. "We move in fast, minimal contact. If you see anything that looks like Chen's helmet or that hydroponic nightmare, you shoot it and you don't stop until it stops twitching." They approached the dropship in a loose wedge. The air's shimmer intensified, threads rippling. The pattern pulsed, almost in sync with Mara's heartbeat. "Don't look too long," Ree murmured. "It's organized. You let your eyes follow it. Your brain will start to align." "Good thing I'm stupid," Havel muttered. They reached the ramp. It hung half open, hydraulic pistons extended. A smear of that dark residue marred one edge, crusted and cracked. Inside, the interior lights glowed dimly. "Crow pilot," Mara called, voice echoing off the hull. "If you can hear me, respond by banging twice on the console." For a moment, nothing. Then, faintly, the sound came. 2 dull thuds from the cockpit. "Could be a trap," O'Connor whispered. "Or he's alive," Selim said. "Either way, we have to check." Mara nodded. "Havel, on me. Rest of you cover the ramp and perimeter. If anything moves that isn't us, kill it." She and Havel moved up the ramp, rifles up. The interior of the Crow looked normal at first glance, straps, seats, stacked gear. Then Mara noticed the fine traceries along the ceiling, thin dark lines that had grown out of the ventilation grills and along the seams of the panels. They converged toward the cockpit door. The door was shut, but the gasket around it bulged slightly, like something had pressed from within. "Pilot," Mara said, "I'm opening this door. If you're still, you stay on your seat and keep your hands where we can see them." No answer. She keyed the manual override. The door slid open with a protesting grind. The pilot sat in his chair, strapped in, helmet on. His hands lay on the armrests, fingers twitching faintly. At first, Mara thought he was intact. Then she saw the tendrils. They had grown from the helmet's base, thin as threads, creeping along the back of the seat and into the console. More sprouted from the wrists of his suit, piercing fabric, merging with the controls. His chest plates bulged slightly as if something pressed from beneath. From the front, his visor was opaque with that same crawling residue. As Mara watched, it shifted, forming and reforming faint glyphs. The two thuds had likely been his hands, reflexively hammering during some conflict between hardware and flesh. "Is he?" Havel began. Salim stepped in behind them, ignoring the order to stay outside. He stared at the pilot for a long moment. "The pathogen has integrated into his nervous system," he said quietly, "and into the ship's. Whatever is left of him is threaded through that." "Is there enough of him left to save?" Mara asked. Salim was silent. The pilot's hand twitched. The fingers lifted, spasmed, and then curled inward, as if grasping for something. A low hum seeped into the cabin, rising from both consoles and human throat, indistinguishable. Ree's voice came over the channel. "I'm seeing a localized signal surge centered on the cockpit. It's trying to push out. Our jammer will limit external spread, but anything inside this metal shell is getting bathed." "It's already here," Havel said, voice flat. Mara made a decision. She stepped forward, pressing her rifle's muzzle against the pilot's chest at the center of the bulge. "I'm sorry," she said softly, not sure if the man could hear her anymore. "We should have been faster." Then she pulled the trigger. The shot punched through armor, through whatever tissue and alien lattice lay beneath, and into the chair. For a second, nothing happened. Then the pilot's body jerked, tendrils spasming. Dark fluid gushed from the wound, splattering the console. The hum spiked, then choked. The tendrils writhed, retracting from the panel edges. The residue on the visor flickered, its patterns scrambling. The pilot's head slumped forward. The webbing along the cabin ceiling pulsed once, then went still. Ree's voice came through, tight. "Signal strength just dropped by 80%. Whatever was orchestrating things in there, you just shot it." "Not it," Salim said quietly. "Him." Mara stepped back. The fluid on her armor came away in strands, trying to cling, but her suit's ceramic coating was designed to shed. It fell in clumps, twitching. "Set the jammer," she told Ree, "and isolate the flight systems from anything that looks like an automatic handshake." "On it," Ree said. They stripped the cockpit down with ruthless speed. Kaido tore open paneling, cutting cables and installing manual overrides. Ree seated the jammer device in the center of the cabin, its small antenna emitting a white noise blanket on every channel they could reach. They severed automatic docking protocols, disabled remote updates, turned the Crow into as much of a dumb metal brick with thrusters as they could. "Can we fly her?" Havel asked when they were done. "Yes," Kaido said. "Barely. Autopilot is a no-go, but basic maneuvering still works. As for the avionics, some of the core firmware could have latent patterns we can't see yet. We've scrubbed what we can without ripping the brain out entirely." "That'll have to do," Mara said. They secured O'Connor in a crash couch with a brace on his leg. Salim dosed him with enough painkillers to quiet a small herd. Havel strapped in opposite. Kaido took the pilot's seat. Mara stood behind him for a moment, watching the dead pilot slumped against his restraints. As Kaido's gloved hand settled on the controls, she saw a faint trace of residue near one socket in the panel. Without hesitating, she took out her knife and scraped it away, sealing the scrap in a sample vial. Old habits. "Stow it," Ree said. "We might need to study that later." "Assuming later exists," Havel muttered. "Everyone strap in," Mara ordered. "Once we're up, we're not coming back." As she sat and locked her harness, she glanced once through the crow's small porthole. Harmony lay beneath them, its structures huddled together, power grids flickering weakly. Smoke from the core explosion still rose in a faint plume. No movement stirred along the walkways, no figures watched from the windows. Ghost town, she thought, empty but not truly. Kaido's voice came over the internal speakers, engines spooling, local gravity compensation online, launching in 3, 2, 1. The dropship lifted, slowly at first, then with more confidence as the thrusters bit into the thin air. The colony shrank beneath them. The shimmer around the hull faded as they rose, whether from distance or from the jammer's interference. Mara couldn't tell. She said, can you re-establish a narrow-band link with the Rook without opening us to whatever's in our systems? I can try, Ree said. We keep it laser-tight, line of sight, no routing through the colony mesh. We just talk to our ship. Do it, Mara said. Tell Stroud to quarantine this world. No landings, no remote slice into any system that ever touched Harmony. And get word out to Colonial Authority that they've got a new class of biohazard, one that uses our own tech to hitch rides. Ree nodded, already working. Mara closed her eyes for a moment. She saw the fused colonist in hydroponics, the hollow body on the shower floor, Chen's empty suit, the glyphs etched in plastic. She saw the pattern in the air around the pad, the way her HUD had glitched in sync with an alien heartbeat. We cut it off, she told herself. We burned its largest nerve center. We stopped the signal. But cosmic horror was never just about monsters. It was about scale. Whatever had found Harmony, a parasite, a distributed intelligence, a fragment of some greater thing drifting through interstellar space, it had proven one thing. It understood communication. It knew how to ride signals, how to lace itself into machines, how to repurpose flesh. Harmony was not the first colony to use outsourced AI systems and standardized firmware. The Rook wasn't the only ship with compatible avionics. The network that spread between worlds was a web, and something had just plucked one of its strands. Ree looked up from her console. I've got the Rook, she said. Narrow band, tight beam, no leakage I can see. Stroud's on. Put him through, Mara said. The captain's voice filled the cabin, faint with distance. Lieutenant, report. Mara swallowed. Harmony is gone, sir. Colonists are either dead or altered beyond recovery. Unknown pathogen hijacked their biology and the colony's AI. We've disabled the core and cut local transmissions, but the thing we found uses machine interfaces to propagate. Recommend full interdiction of this system and any automated link with Harmony's infrastructure. No remote access, no salvage ops. We nuke the colony grid from orbit if we can get authorization. Stroud was silent for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was quieter. Understood. You made the call I would have. I'll relay your recommendations. There's more, Ree said. We don't know if any pattern seeded itself into our own systems before we cut the link. I've firewalled as much as I can, but we can't guarantee we're not carrying something dormant in our firmware. Suggest running the Rook on analog fallback as much as possible. No uplink to wider nets until we're sure. Stroud exhaled slowly. You're telling me my own ship might be infected. We're telling you the world got smaller today, Mara said, and less safe. Another pause. All right, Stroud said. We'll do a hard isolation. Once you're aboard, we'll put you through decontamination and quarantine. Every system you touched will get stripped. Every suit, every sensor. We'll treat you like you walked through a plague pit. Fair, Havel murmured. Good work, Lieutenant, Stroud added, and there was something like genuine respect in his tone. Get my people home. Copy, sir, Mara said. The connection cut. Silence settled over the cabin, broken only by the soft whine of the engines and the occasional creak of the hull. O'Connor shifted in his restraints. So, he said, do we talk about the fact that we might be infected with a signal? Or do we pretend that's not happening until we're out of decon and someone smart tells us we're fine? We're already doing everything we can, Salim said. Worrying just burns energy we need later. Yeah, but what if later is just us in a containment cell humming alien lullabies? O'Connor persisted. Mara opened her eyes and looked at her hands, encased in armor. She flexed them, feeling the suit servos follow. Her HUD showed normal readouts now, no glitches, no phantom icons. Still, she could not shake the sense that something had watched them from behind the static. That, somewhere in the firing patterns of their neural implants and the subroutines of their suit firmware, a fragment of a structure had taken root. Not active, not yet. Perhaps just a pattern waiting for the right carrier wave. She looked out the port again, at the shrinking disk of Harmony's world. You know, Havel said quietly, people are going to want to study this, build models, weaponize it if they can. They'll send teams in, suits twice as thick and brains twice as big, thinking they'll be careful, that they'll be different. They always do, Salim said. Mara thought of the distress signal, rebroadcast by something 41 days after Harmony had died. Not calling for help, calling for hosts. Maybe the thing in the colony had not been hurt at all by their actions. Maybe this was just one limb lopped off some far larger organism. Maybe the real entity lay in the dark between stars, flicking fragments of itself like spores along the data lanes of human expansion. Maybe Harmony was a test. We did what we are, she said softly. The others looked at her. Rescuers, she clarified. Soldiers. We respond to distress, that's what it used. That's what it will use again. Out here, a scream in the dark doesn't have to be real to get an answer. Ree shivered. That's bleak, LT. It's honest, Havel said, and she's not wrong. The Crow rose higher, engines flaring. The Rook grew in the viewport, a gray wedge against the stars, hangar bay doors opening to receive them. As they closed in, Mara felt a faint ringing at the edge of her hearing, like someone humming a tune she didn't quite know how to recognize. She frowned, tilting her head. Anyone else hear that? She asked. Hear what? Havel replied. A tone? Soft? Repeating? No, Ree said. Our jammer's still on. The only thing humming in here is the hardware. Salim glanced at her. Stress can do that. Phantom sounds. Yeah, O'Connor added. I've been hearing a little whistle ever since Chen vanished, my brain filling in gaps or whatever. Mara nodded slowly. Maybe that was all it was. The Crow slid into the Rook's hangar, clamps engaging. Atmosphere flooded the bay. External lights brightened, washing the viewport in white. We're home, Kaido said. For some value of home, Havel muttered. The ramp lowered. Decontamination teams waited beyond it in full sealed suits, equipment bristling, scanners humming. They would strip the Marines down to bare skin if they had to, scrub every microchip, burn anything they couldn't trust. Mara unlatched her harness, rising slowly. Her muscles ached. Her mind felt scraped raw. As she stepped toward the ramp, she realized she was humming, very softly, under her breath. A low, rising tone. 3 notes, over and over. She caught herself and stopped, heart lurching. What was that? Ree asked. Nothing, Mara lied. She walked down into the bright light in the waiting hands of her own people, carrying with her the memory of Harmony's silence and the hum in her bones. Behind her, in the dead pilot's visor, the last traces of the dark residue finally dried and cracked, flaking apart. Outside, far from any human eye, the echo of the distress signal faded into the endless noise between stars. Somewhere within that noise, a pattern stirred, listening for the next.
Thanks for watching Echo Forge. If this story resonated with you, leave a comment, hit like, and subscribe so the next tale finds you. Share this with someone who loves dark fantasy or twisted sci-fi, and I'll see you in the next world.